Welcome to the Jabbering Jawas podcast with your host, Joey Clark, and
Will, the Thrill, Stafford.
or as we like to call him, Will Sith, and me, Joey One Kenobi. Hello, all. After a week of recovery from surgery, I am back. Just to let you know, if I am moving around and looking kind of stupid, it's mostly because I have a tube up my dick and it is uncomfortable as shit to sit down. And my mouth is a little off because they had to take a huge chunk out of it, a skin graft. This cheek looked like a horror story for about a week. It still kind of does. So apologies if my speech is a little slurred, but we're going to just try and get back into the swing of things down here because there's actually Star Wars news in the season of COVID. So, I know. And it's weird because it's like everything hit this past week and I was like, fuck, I really want to talk about this shit. Oh, and also, as a warning, since we've already sworn and I've said so many screwed up things, this is a perfect example of if you're under the age of 18 and a young Padawan, don't keep listening to this filth.
Yeah.
But if you are, don't tell your parents.
And I was hard about dicks and tubes and stuff, but just no, from now on, just stop listening.
Dick tubes. That's probably what Vader had after he was a crispy critter. Anyway.
I mean, I don't want to know about the logistics of what he had or didn't have, man.
I know. It's like, at what point did his legs get cut off? It's like, just the tip.
Oh, that's probably why he was like, hey.
He's like, this is why I'm so fucking pissed. I don't got a dick and I got to wear all this painful black ass armor. Can't even see shit. Everything looks red.
I understand his pain, if that were the case, yeah.
Either
way, it all got burnt, so yeah.
It's like, so what happened to you, Darth? Oh, I didn't apply sunscreen. But we got plenty on the slate today. We will be going over Star Wars Squadrons as the trailer and the announcement was made earlier this week. And then also there's been comments by some of our favorite actors around the galaxy. Adam Driver, Ewan McGregor, about the projects they've worked on and are going to be working on. And then also Jon Favreau just dropped his own comments, and we have a lot to say about that. And if we have time, maybe some rumor news. No audience questions this week. If we have extra time, maybe we'll just talk about some random shit. But
we do that anyway, so
that's true.
Yeah, I guess we'll start off with Star Wars Squadrons. Yeah, you watched the whole trailer reveal and everything.
Yeah.
And I watched that whole EA Play event. It was interesting. I mean, it's EA. Yeah. So I take everything. I still take everything they do with a great assault, but like we said last week, Rogue One has been good. I know a lot of people like, what is it, like Apex Legends or something like that? I guess it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And what else was it like recently? I think that's it, honestly. But they updated Battlefront 2 and it's like better now. So it's three things that are like pretty decent right now for EA. So going into like the Squadrons trailer, I was kind of, skeptical. Hesitant. I will say the trailer looked good, but we talked about it a little bit before this. I'm just worried, and you told me like the price was gonna be $40 and everything. So I'm like, okay, so it's gonna be more of a budget game, which is fine. I don't know if I would have paid $60 for that kind of game anyway, because just flying and everything. There's not much else to it, I don't think. But I'm just a little bit worried about when EA does budget games, but we'll see. And the trailer was good, but like I said, they said it was gameplay, and a lot of it was it seemed like a lot of cutscenes and other things like kind of weaved in with maybe a bit of gameplay. So that worries me too when the company doesn't straight up show gameplay. But I don't know how did you feel about the whole reveal?
I mean, I'm excited for anything new in Star Wars, especially since I mean some of my favorite moments of gameplay throughout Star Wars gaming has been dogfighting and fighting and fighters. But I think the thing that was lacking for me personally, at least with the last Battlefront, was the dynamics of the like fighting in starfighters. I was pretty disappointed with it overall, and I actually prefer the newer version of Battlefront's gameplay as far as dogfighting, and then the first two original Battlefronts I thought were better even than this last one. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little skeptical. The other thing that makes me a little bit worried is because when I usually do fighter, like starfighter fighting, I always play in the third person. I very rarely like going in the first person mode. As cool as it is to see the consoles and stuff, you have a very limited view of what you're actually looking at. And sometimes for me personally, I get a little motion sickness when I play like that
Yeah.
because everything is just kind of like on a gyro, and it
Mm-hmm.
screws with my head a lot. So and I feel that's probably a big reason why it's also maybe more on the budget side, because you don't need to build out all of this stuff that's on the side of you when you're in third person. So
Yeah.
you're just looking through a viewport. So maybe that's why it's like a $40 game. And the only time you'll see like those bigger, open spaces is when you're about to launch into a mission or the cutscenes. Um, I do get like your point, especially about being worried if because it's a budget game and they didn't show much gameplay if it's going to be good. Star Wars is kind of notorious for not showing their full hand when it comes to anything, and then maybe it's also because they're
Except for Rise of
still render. Yeah, that. All right, we're gonna talk about that somehow during this whole
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah. This one for the jar.
Trashing the sequels all the time on the Jabbering Jawas podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's I'm excited for it for sure. I'm very curious of what the story is gonna really be, because it says they're gonna swap back and forth between the Empire and the New Republic fighters. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously the Empire is gonna fucking lose because I don't see any other way to it. So I'm just kind of curious of how they're gonna refresh and make a story that's, fruitful and stuff, for us to play and enjoy. But yeah, I'm skeptical too because I don't really know what they're planning on doing with this game. And the one thing that is a little bit making me optimistic about it, but also worrisome, is they said at least initially, they don't have plans for DLC content or
Mm-hmm.
downloadable content later on. They just
Like
want
we
to
can
give
expect.
you the game as it is
Yeah.
launch day. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I also am appreciative of everything in there is just amazing, and I don't need it.
Mm-hmm. And to go off of the point that you were talking about it being first person.
Yeah,
I think that's valid because, and I think that it might only be first person because obviously the budget, and also they were talking about a big thing about it is that they're gonna have VR support and stuff because that's like the new thing. Not really that into VR. Like I've tried it before. It's kind of like I don't want to play games in VR. Like if I
yeah,
did that, I would play for like an hour or two, and I'd just be like, okay, I can't do this. Like so
yeah,
yeah, I think that's kind of the thing about it. I think they're trying to, because EA is always trying to kind of push something like some kind of new tech or something like that. So I feel like that's
yeah.
gonna be like you can play this in VR, and then this. I mean, I don't play VR that much, so I don't know. Maybe somebody watching this knows, but I haven't seen many games where you play multiplayer online and you can play somebody who's playing VR and then you're playing like a controller. Like that's interesting, I guess. If somebody wants to play in VR, just do that. But yeah, that worries me a little bit too. And then the other thing I was just thinking about when you were saying that is you were talking about how um, before this we were talking about they were talking about how you can change like the power to the shields and stuff from the front to the back or divert it to the engines of the weapons.
Yeah.
and you can pull all these maneuvers. And I wonder if maybe the first person view has to do something with that too. Maybe you control the character, you literally like control their arms and like press stuff. I don't know if they'll go that like
Deep into it.
that deep with it, because obviously you could do that with VR because they have the little things, but it's like how would you map that to the controller? So I don't know. That's the only other thing I was thinking of why it was like first person. Like maybe that you have to like literally press these buttons or something. But you know,
And no, it's a yeah. I mean, I think one of the big challenges for this is gonna be, especially at launch, is having the game available to cross different platforms because you can play with everybody.
hmm
So I that's a little thing that's making me skeptical because it is probably going to be more of a highly anticipated game that a lot of people are going to play,
yeah,
and I'm worried, was it going to crash and lag the first day when everyone tries to get on? And that's one of the things I'm really curious about. And then the fact that it's a cool concept when you can have a squadron of friends, 5v5 dogfighting, but it's like, in essence, that sounds good, but it's like, when are five of your friends gonna all line up on the same time schedule to always fight each
yeah.
other? And I mean, I love the concept of it for sure. I'm just kind of curious of how it's gonna go,
It'll
and execution wise, as far as that aspect of it too.
it'll likely be like Battlefront. You join a game and they just set you up with some random people unless you start playing it with friends. And then obviously you're on the same team. But this one will be like just 5v5. I will say the one thing, because you were just talking about it crashing on day one. I will say EA in terms of their like online infrastructures and stuff, they're usually pretty good at like having a multiplayer games and they run pretty well. But it also depends on if like is this kind of team the one who's like working on it? Are they the ones who are like mainly doing it, or is it like do they have some of their like main people on it, or is this why it's a budget title because they have like this kind of like random like our new team or something kind of doing it? So yeah, that's something I was kind of thinking about. But I feel like it'll probably, if in terms of the online, will run well, even like first day.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see how the game is. It would be cool if they had like a beta test or something, or like a demo of some kind before it launches, like a few weeks out or something. They're like, hey, you can try this. There's a few like squadron modes for free to see if you like it. But I don't know. It's not really EA's MO, so I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like you have to test this game really well to especially with what they're trying to accomplish. I think it would just be wise to do that because, especially when they say that, like you say, you can control different aspects of your fighter, like diverting power to the engines or the weapons or your shields and moving it around your starfighter. It's like, it seems pretty complicated, and I'm very curious to see what the learning curve is for doing something like that. Will
Yeah.
it be something that you can just pick up, or is it going to be something where it's going to be a challenge to play? And is it going to, to an extent, upset people of learning that
hmm
skill to play the game? Because the thing that you don't want with the game is to be frustrated right off the bat and be pissed when you're playing. And I'm sure they'll have varying levels of degree, hopefully, of like, okay, how much can you control your ship? How much stuff will go automatically? Because it seems like when they're explaining it as you go, you'll start to be able to kind of control things in the story mode. And then they also said there's practice mode, so you can try it out. But most people usually don't have that mindset. I feel like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go play some practice mode. It's like,
But actually, though, you know what I actually just realized? I don't know if
yeah,
you caught this in the trailer. I'm pretty sure this is what he said, that you have to play a certain amount of like the story missions before you're able to do online. I'm pretty sure that they said that. Like
I
you have
think
to play a certain amount of missions or something.
I think something to that effect, like almost like you're logging in time, I guess.
Yeah. So then my other concern is, what if the story is just not enjoyable? What if it's like repetitive and you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
people don't even bother, like they don't want to do it and even get to the multiplayer, you know? That could be problematic, but we'll see. Uh, yeah, I just remember that they said that. That's apparently how it's going to work.
Yeah, maybe they just need to do some more clarification on that, or maybe they might end up because they have time to change elements of it before then and switch it up if they want to. But at least as far as any of the games that have come out so far, and the only one that's had a really big story is Battlefront 2. I feel like they nail game stories pretty damn well, and I don't think there will be an issue with the story. For me, it's all about having that story, still grab us because it is between the New Republic and the remnants of the Empire. So we always know, I mean, the rebellion is going to win, most likely, I would assume, by the end of this. Or maybe they'll throw us for a loop and maybe they'll try and do a secondary story to this if it's popular. So we'll see. But I'm really wondering what it's going to be like because they said you'll switch back and forth. So it's like, are you going to play one side and then play the other doing the exact same story? So like, oh, we lost on this side of the thing and now let's go win it as the rebels, or is it going to like progress and then you'll switch sides as you progress? So
Yeah,
it's kind of one of
kind
those
of
things
right.
where I'm trying to figure that out.
No, this is not like, I don't know if you heard about this game that just came out, the Last of Us 2, and people are very upset about it because you have to play as like the bad person in it. So yeah, I hope it's not like that. But it doesn't seem to me like these characters are going to be like too like that complicated or anything. They're probably going to be pretty like simple characters overall. And I think was what were Wedge Antilles and
Hair.
Hera, were they just in the multiplayer? Was that just a multiplayer thing, or was that in the story itself?
I would assume it'd have to be in the story because I don't think they would throw them into the multiplayer because when they were saying the only ships that you have are just the basic starfighters, I mean, that's cool and everything. But I feel like if they were to throw them into the multiplayer, it's like when you play like the other Star Wars games, how you can sometimes get hero ships. They
Hmm.
didn't mention anything like that, so I feel like it has to be just the story because if you're playing multiplayer, you would want to like fly the Ghost or
Yeah.
something from Rebels. Um, the other thing too is a lot of people haven't caught on a character that they're bringing into the gaming world, which I think is kind of cool. Is this character Ray Sloan, who is um, in charge of, I think, an Imperial fleet at this point, or she's a pretty well-rounded, like, Imperial veteran,
Hmm.
and she's pretty ruthless and pretty badass. So it's kind of cool that we get to see a female Star Wars character, another one introduced that is such a strong character that hasn't been in anything, I think, besides books, and then I think maybe a comic.
Okay.
So
So
I'm
they're
kind of looking forward to that.
kind of using this to introduce that character as well.
Yeah, and I hope they bring her into the fold more because she is a pretty damn good character. Same thing with Hera. I mean, I'd love to see a live action Hera or
Yeah. It was actually really interesting seeing her character model because that's the first time we see it not like animated in the Rebel style. So I was like,
yeah.
wow, it was kind of crazy to see. I was like, oh, look at that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, the first time we got a glimpse of her, I was like, "Oh, she looks pretty cool." But then the second time, there's like a close up of her, and it doesn't look anything like the first one from the side. Like
Yeah.
Hera, and not to confuse anyone with my thoughts on this, I see Hera as a total badass female pilot who that's who she is first and foremost, and is just a great character overall. But the way that she was portrayed, as far as her look, the
Hmm.
second time around, is like she looked like Shrek in Orn-Free Taa. That big giant Twi'lek senator had a kid.
Yeah.
Like it didn't look like Hera. It looked or like a really bad B movie version of Hera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was
And
a little jarring, honestly. That I think you're talking about that close-up shot, and she's kind of like looking up
yeah,
or something like that. Yeah, and I'm just like,
yeah,
something weird here. I don't know what it is, but there's something weird. I think that's a good way to explain it.
yeah.
I mean, hopefully they kind of like fix that up a little bit because yeah, it didn't. It's like yes, like everything looked like Harry, but the face was just kind of like what?
It's, yeah, because me and one of my friends who cosplays as Hera, she was like, "Yeah, Hera's supposed to be beautiful and glamorous," and she was like, and she was really honing in, and she was saying like, "Yeah, Hera's a hottie," and then they made her look like this, and I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to say, oh, maybe war took a toll on her." And again, I'm not trying to say that all Hera is looks or anything like that. It's just a little disappointing when, you know, you've had this character, and obviously there's going to be a bit of a shift because she's supposed to look more human-esque, I guess you could say. And Rebels is a very stylized form of animation compared to most.
Yeah.
But it just didn't capture that feeling of her. And in general, that's kind of why I worry about characters from the animated world being brought into live action because sometimes they just don't look right. But
Yeah, it would have been like if let's say they took like Mace Windu. Mace Windu always has this very like kind of stoic, like he's very serious, kind of like he has that look on his face. And imagine if they just like got some other black guy who was like some like pretty looking like model, like it just wouldn't look right.
yeah,
Like Samuel Jackson is that like yeah. It's like characters are just kind of like a certain way. It's like Hera can be like beautiful the way she is, but then also like she has this like kind of rough like interior, I guess you would say. Like she's been through some shit and she like shows that while also being like kind of graceful and shit. But, yeah.
yeah, like there's a certain like presence, and I mean, it's hard to deny the physicality of a character because they have a certain presence to them. Like
Yeah.
you said, like Hera, deep down, she is this very motherly, caring person, but she also is this incredible fighter for the rebellion and has a very sometimes stoic and serious tone to her, especially to those who are not her family or super close to her, like the Ghost Crew.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I didn't feel like that was captured in those moments, so I hope it is changed up a bit to where they
Mhm.
give that character the respect she's due.
You know what's actually a perfect example? It's a perfect example. You ever seen the trailer for they have that Marvel Avengers game that's coming out for like PS4 and Xbox One and all that? And you watch that and like they have all the characters there. They have Iron Man, they have Captain America, they have Black Widow, they have all of them. But then you see their faces, you're just kind of like, who the fuck are these people? Like it's like after being part of the MCU for so long, it's like you see them and you're just kind of like, they couldn't pay like any of like the main people like or somebody just to get their likenesses just a little bit more like what we know. Like it was just or even like the comic book. They didn't even like comic book representations of like the ones there and you know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah.
if you look at the comic book and you look at Tony Stark, like Robert Downey Jr. looks just like Tony Stark in the comic book. And this one in that game did not look like either of them. It was just like why did they do this? Like yeah, I think that's kind of like what the feeling was. It's just like why this doesn't look right. Like it doesn't feel right, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, Ray Sloan, I think, has been shown in a comic, I want to say, before, but there's not much reference material. And I thought her design was pretty damn good
Mm-hmm.
compared to what I've read about her and what I've seen before.
Yeah.
And then Wedge Antilles, that looked like Wedge to me perfectly.
Yeah. And I mean, he wears a helmet, so it's like you can't
Uh,
exactly tell. But I mean, it looked like him. I was like his design. So yeah, I don't understand what. Maybe because Hera's an alien. I don't know. Like, oh, but
I
whatever.
don't, I don't know, but I think we're both in agreement. We're excited, but kind of skeptical about how this whole Squadrons thing is going to wrap up. I'm sure we'll probably end up seeing more gameplay at some point. I
Yeah.
think the announcement was also just because it's COVID and it's not a normal EA Play announcement. I think
Mhm.
it's harder to get that same kind of excitement when you're just you feel not like saying that we would be at the event per se, but there's a certain energy when you're showing it to a live audience, and even if you're watching
Yeah.
from home, I think you just get more skeptical because it's like you don't really know how other people are reacting, and how other people react. I mean, is a big part of how you personally react too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I would say that wasn't it kind of like a little bit awkward when they brought I forgot what the director of for the game what his name was, but they brought him on. And he's like, yeah, and you saw the trailer earlier this week for Squadrons, and here's the trailer. I feel like they weren't supposed to show the trailer like before, or like I don't. I feel like there's like something awkward there. I don't know.
some
But,
kind of disconnect.
yeah, like we've seen the trailer and then they showed it again. Like it's kind of awkward how he like started it. He's like, yeah, and then you seen the trailer earlier this week, and well, here it is. You haven't seen it. I was just kind of like, huh, okay. And then after that, they showed the newer like gameplay trailer.
Gameplay trailer.
I was like, huh.
Yeah, I was. I mean, but it's also like in nerd culture. I mean, we can be really awkward and weird sometimes, and
Yeah. Well,
it might be some.
it wasn't him. Like I know that these people, I know that like the people that direct the games and stuff, they're not like you know uh, public speakers or anything. I understand that. It's just I feel like there was a disconnect with EA or something. Like he wasn't expecting them to show the trailer earlier that week or something. I don't know.
I mean, sometimes you are blindsided because I mean, I've heard things even from like Lucasfilm officials that are friends where like they had no fucking clue about something when it is kind of their job to know, and they were blindsided. Like I've been told, oh, I found out that shit with you guys, and I'm like, how the fuck do you find that out with us? Like you're one of the people that should know. And they're like, I don't know. But and
Yeah,
I've heard that with other studios and stuff too, where it's like you would think that would be your job to know that, and sometimes it's just played really close to the really close to the vest, and just kind of out of nowhere.
yeah, yeah,
Or it's like, well, we sent you an email, but maybe it got in your spam folder, and it's like, an email? Okay, cool. That's a great explanation.
yeah. I mean, it's like that sometimes. I understand that.
Yeah.
That's just how I felt when I watched it. I was like, hmm, something a little awkward there, but it's whatever.
Nah, I feel you, man. But let's get into some more news-related stuff. I mean, we have had comments, and actors do like to talk. I mean, we're all people. We like to share about what we're working on and stuff. And Ewan McGregor did make some comments about the Kenobi series that I'm feeling pretty good about, since I've been skeptical, only because with the Kenobi series, as everyone knows here, and especially who knows me, Obi-Wan Kenobi is hands down my favorite character in the Star Wars universe. Ewan McGregor is my favorite portrayal of him. And this series, at least as far as pre-production and stuff, has just kind of thrown everyone for a whirlwind, and it kind of scares me. But his optimism is kind of helping me out, because he was saying he's more excited to work on this one than he was on the previous ones, because he gets to work with more of a physical set. You can actually interact with things, which is making me happy. And he's seems like he's really geared up to go play Kenobi again. So, I
Mhm.
mean, what do you think about it?
I mean, yeah, I think it's very good when an actor is like into it, like when they want to make something happen. That when they put that passion in, it's just for at the very least, like him playing that character is going to be great. And we already knew that, like Ian McGregor, like he always kills it as Kenobi. But yeah, this it's good for him to go in with that kind of optimism. and for him to kind of be saying, yeah, all the stuff that I'm seeing around me, I like this too. It's not just like I'm going to put my best effort in. It's like I feel like they're putting their best effort in around me, and we're going to make like a good product for all of you. So I like the sound of that.
Yeah, I mean, um, like you said, he does have a love for the character, which I'm really glad because there are some people who do see being a part of the Star Wars universe as a job, and not to say that that's wrong, because I mean, for most people, especially when it is their job, they take it seriously in the moment and they do their job.
Mhm.
And but for me, the thing that really I hold on to, especially with people like him or someone, especially like Ashley Eckstein, where they feel the love for their fans, they truly enjoy what they do, and they know how important this franchise is to people. So it comforts me knowing that he is my favorite portrayal of my favorite character, that he cares about this as much as he does, that he's genuinely excited for it. And even to go as far as to say, I'm more excited to do it this time than I was the previous time.
Mhm.
I'm guessing he must know what the story is. He must know how things are probably going to go. And knowing that Deborah Chow, who did some of the really great scenes and episodes of Mandalorian, I'm excited to see how she directs Kenobi, or rather, Ewan McGregor in Kenobi. The only thing that I'm worried about overall is just the story, because initially it was supposed to be a 6-part series, then they cut it down to 4.
Yeah.
So it's like the one thing that fans have pretty much said that they wanted when they said they were going to do spin-offs was a Kenobi movie, and then when Disney Plus like, oh, make it a series. That's cool. But how long are these episodes going to be? Is it going to be as short as The Mandalorian? And then it's like, then you might as well have made a fucking feature.
Hmm. Yeah. You might as well just make a Lord of the Rings, something as long as that. But yeah, I'm confident in the director, confident in the actor, and Ewan McGregor,
Yeah.
and I know they're gonna bring like a good um I don't know what you say, like just like good cinematography, good like practical effects and all that. I know they'll bring that because they've been doing that on all their series and movies. But or we talked about Solo before, and I will say it's a good production. There's plenty of good cinematography. There's good acting and everything, but it's just like you couldn't really get into the story because it was kind of like it was kind of like, and then you couldn't really get into the actor because it wasn't Harrison Ford. So at least with this
Yeah.
one, we have Ewan McGregor. So that
Yeah.
not a worry.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
I'm worried they might play it too safe like they did with Solo. Hopefully not, but we'll see.
yeah, it's really hard to figure out what they're gonna do with this run of, like, since it's a limited series, what they'll do with these episodes. Because to me, it has to be one cohesive story. It's not like they can. I don't think they would time jump at all unless they did like one episode of him or part of an episode of him like going to Tatooine and just like being there for a little bit, and then they jump forward in time.
Mhm.
But I mean, as I've said before, the way that I want them to treat this is to kind of give him the Logan Wolverine type deal where he has to deal with all of that BS, and then there has to be a higher purpose for him to go out and do something like, say, find Vader and attempt to bring Anakin Skywalker back. Just like Vader said in A New Hope, Obi-Wan once thought as you did.
Mhm.
Don't make me destroy it. You
I think it
what
would.
does that mean?
I think it would be really. I mean, it'd be amazing if they brought Vader in there for sure. That would be cool. It'd be even cooler if they're talking about bringing Hayden Christensen. If they put him in the suit, that'd be kind of cool. But we'll see. We'll see. Um,
Especially when it's like a younger-ish I mean, not too much younger, but
Mhm.
a youngerish Vader
Yeah.
and still a younger Obi-Wan. And because you also have to think, A New Hope, it is, I mean, it's the first lightsaber fight, so obviously you don't really know what to expect going into that. And George Lucas was, kind of
Mhm.
feeling it out. So it's like, I can only imagine if he were to have gone back, if he would still keep that fight the exact same way, or would he add a little more flair to it?
Mhm.
There's the potential to do just that with this series,
Yeah.
like a full-on cool Vader Obi-Wan fight again. And I don't want it to be to the degree of Revenge of the
Really.
Sith,
Yeah.
because for me personally, I do like a lot of it, but I really do love the more intimate, personal saber fighting. But I think you can do that and give it, like I said, a little more flair to it.
I think you, in terms of this fight, good things for them to go off of would be the the last fight between Ahsoka and Maul in Clone Wars, and then the fight between Maul and Obi-Wan on Rebels.
Reb,
Like something somewhere between that, where it's like it's nothing too crazy because they know each other so well. Like Vader and Obi-Wan,
yeah,
but then obviously it's still going to be pretty evenly matched. I would even say at this point that Vader would probably be able to overpower him still, just because of like the power of his hatred and shit. But and Obi-Wan might have to like flee or something or whatever. But I don't know. We'll see. I think it could be interesting though if they put it like kind of between those two, where it's like really simple, but then because they know each other so well, it's just kind of like all these very intricate like kind of movements and understanding of like their styles and yeah.
yeah, I definitely agree. And then just a last note on this: if they do have some kind of engagement, and I know again, A New Hope was made without ever even knowing that a Kenobi series down the line would be made,
Yeah.
and there is some changes, but
No,
Obi-Wan's lightsaber in Revenge of the Sith, it would be cool if Vader maybe somehow destroys it or it gets a little, fucked up in a fight. And then he has to make those adjustments to make it into the A New Hope version. I
yeah.
think that would look cool because it's only a bit different by comparison. But I think it would just be kind of like that nice little nod, like there is a reason why it looks like
Yeah.
this, besides simply just saying, oh, A New Hope, and there's some things, you can't change.
I mean, if they have that fight, the Vader ends up overpowering him because he obviously has a new style now. Even though he's the same person, he has a new style with being part of the dark side now. So maybe
Yeah.
he'll be able to surprise Obi-Wan and overpower him, break his lightsaber. He flees back to Tatooine. He's like, okay, I'm gonna stay here, close myself off so that he can't find me or Luke, and I'm just gonna stay here so I can protect him. And then he has to kind of maybe he meets some Jawas and he's like, hey, I need some scraps so I can like put this back together. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
No, definitely be cool, man. But I'm just really curious of when it's gonna come out because they say, excuse me, that they're supposed to start shooting early next year. So I'm guessing it would be out by the end of 2021 if it falls in line with like Mandalorian type scheduling. Because they said that also he was excited because they're going to use the same technology or something similar as the Mandalorian with the volume, how it's like that big giant video screen and then like a partial practical set. So that'll be interesting to see how it's used in a different kind of environment with Kenobi stuff.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I do like how they did the sets and everything on the Mandalorian, and how they did things like Baby Yoda, and it just looks like a
Yeah.
really it's just super fucking cute, but it's just like a really good like practical thing that they also use like CGI on and stuff, and
Yeah.
they did it in a really good way. So yeah, they have things like that in there. I won't be too worried about that because that'll be good.
Yeah.
But I definitely like agree with you. I'm more optimistic about it. with the kind of some of these things are coming out now, it's like okay, it should be solid, and the possibilities that this story could have, because I mean, there's multiple people out there. Obi-Wan could Yoda's still out there, but I don't know if they communicate before, like Empire, but I'm
Yeah,
assuming they
that's
would in some way.
potentially. I do know there's a book called From a Certain Point of View, which has little stories, um, like throughout I think it's like around the A New Hope era, and one of them is called, I think, Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray, or The Master and the Apprentice, something like that. And it's actually intertwined with when Luke goes to find his dead aunt and uncle, and Qui-Gon is talking to him about the Force and kind of giving him a hint or directly telling him you're going to have to sacrifice yourself basically for this kid. And he has been communicating off and on with Qui-Gon. So I'm kind of curious if it's going to be one of those things in the series, if most of what we see is him kind of just acting to himself and
Mhm.
kind of just living on his own, or if there's going to be another presence like Yoda talking to him from a far distance, or a Qui-Gon, kind of being there at his side, teaching him things or talking to him. Because as much as I want to see the struggle of him kind of coming to grips with everything, I feel like there has to be some other person's presence there as well. Like,
Yeah.
who is he playing off of during all this is kind of my thing with it too.
So one question before we move on. In that
Yeah.
story,
Yeah.
do they show Qui-Gon? Does he show up as a Force ghost, or is he more of a voice?
I think at that point he has learned to physically manifest himself, but I think he was almost saying that he was like in pain doing it.
Hmm.
Like it was hard for him to do it.
I remember just like reading people's theories about how he never actually learns how to fully become Force Ghost, and that's why we don't see him in like any of these other movies or anything. And I'm like, I guess that could be understandable because he wasn't expecting to get killed by Darth Maul, of course, and he was learning that. But yeah, I was just wondering if they ever showed him as a Force Ghost in anything. But that's interesting that you say that he said he's in pain to do it.
Yeah, like I think he's kind of still learning even in the afterlife of doing it. Yoda had it's weird with like Force Ghost rules because uh, Qui-Gon didn't fully learn it. I think the reason why the wills or the Force presented itself to him is because he wasn't so dogmatic in the ways of the Jedi, that he was open.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of reminds me of Luke in The Last Jedi, how he was saying, to say the light dies,
Mm-hmm.
or say the Jedi die, the light dies, that's vanity. I think Qui-Gon had that kind of mindset, so I think the Force allowed him that gift, because it is a gift and something that the Force presents to you. Not just anyone can get it,
Yeah.
or someone has to teach you. But then Obi-Wan learned it from Qui-Gon, which makes sense. And then Yoda was presented it before, because Qui-Gon reached out to him, and so did the Force in Clone Wars. And then Anakin was just the lucky motherfucker that I think Obi-Wan, they say, I think the theory, or maybe it was confirmed, that told him at the last second how to do it. So that's why he can, and he was the chosen one, so I guess he can just do anything.
Yeah.
Except apparently Force heal, because I guess they came up with that in the sequel trilogy. But I digress.
Yeah. Speaking of Force Ghosts being able to just do crazy things, speaking of sequel trilogy too, just grab lightsabers.
Adam Driver had some interesting things to say about Kylo Ren and his backstory. As you said, speaking of the sequel trilogy, this is kind of something that I was waiting to happen, or eventually let slip up. So essentially what happened was, during a Vanity Fair preview of The Rise of Skywalker, there were some things in an interview with author Lev Grossman over there at Vanity Fair with Adam Driver regarding his time on The Rise of Skywalker.
Mhm.
And basically, Grossman was like, I always wanted to see more of Kylo Ren's backstory, and I never felt like we understood, like his motivations or why is he the way he is. And I mean, Driver had some interesting thoughts, about his childhood. And essentially, the quote is he said that both Han Solo and Leia were too self absorbed and into this idea of themselves as heroes to really be attentive parents in the way a young and tender Kylo Ren really needed. There wasn't really that much of it in the movie, so I just think we have to assume that his childhood sucked. So it's like, okay, you're telling me you're going to base one of your main characters off of the fact that you hope your audience assume that his childhood sucked. This is what pissed me off so much about that character, because you get glimpses of it if you read novels.
Mhm.
You should not have to read a fucking novel to understand one of your main characters. Novels should pepper in little details that make characters cooler or fill you in on some cool information. They should not fucking be where you figure out the story to piece it together. I
It's
don't know how many times I've had to say this with shit.
especially when it's very obvious they're trying to make these sequels for like a general audience, right? So like, what general audiences are gonna go? Like, most people aren't gonna go read like every Star Wars comic and novel after they're done watching these movies. Like, the general audience isn't gonna do that. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's a baffling choice. And I do remember like just thinking about that, where I'm like, they're kind of like in the Force Awakens when they have kind of Han and Leia finally like meet up with each other. It's like Han's
Yeah.
obviously off doing like his Han thing, but the way they present Leia is very like she's still very regal, very kind and motherly. So you're like, oh well, she seems like the
Yeah.
Leia we would know and love. Why would Kylo want to betray her or kill her and all this stuff, And it's like, so it's interesting getting that from Adam Driver, because it's like, it, and it's funny because I remember we talked about how good his acting was, it was in the sequel trilogies,
Yeah.
and I can almost understand that when he's portraying a character, like after when you say that, I can kind of think about to his character, and I'm like, okay, I can understand why when he was portraying it, why he would kind of do some of the things he did. Like, I get that, but we had to like understand that in the movie, this is why this character feels this way. It's like we get, oh, Snoke took him from us, and where have you been, Han? You've been doing your scoundrel thing still, and it's just like, and that's it. But it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you got to build a little bit more understanding of these characters.
Yeah. And this isn't to pat myself on the back the way that I phrase this, but just as a little gift of insight for those of you watching right now. Essentially, what happened from piecing most of this shit together, and the movies can make it a little confusing. Essentially, what happened was Leia had her responsibilities to the New Republic. She was really focused on making sure the New Republic didn't fall into the ways of the old, the previous democracy under, I can't call it the old Republic, but the Republic during the time of the Clone Wars, and
Mhm.
making sure that the Imperial threads, those the corruption of any kind of imperial control or corruption in general. So she was just focused on the political side of things. And then Han Solo, he wasn't smuggling or anything at that time. He became a racer of sorts and had like a racing team and sponsored
Like this.
racers. No, it was like a legit thing for once that he did with his life. And then Leia basically kind of passed off Ben to Luke to be trained. So there wasn't a whole lot of interaction between, mother and son, father and son. I mean, grew up with earlier on, yeah, but
Yeah.
essentially they kind of just cast him off onto, his uncle. Like,
Hmm.
he didn't really have a really good family dynamic at home, and you can maybe guess that, but you have no fucking clue as to why that happened. Leia was focused more on politics than her own son. And I get that they wanted to, send him to Luke, so because he was the only trained Jedi that they thought, oh, if we do this, it might be good for him because he's the only one that understands how to really, control and use the Force correctly. Eh, But
Although, and you say that, and naturally, Rise of Skywalker totally throws a fucking wrench in the middle of that because they apparently Leia was trained, but apparently she stopped because she's like, oh, well, if I continue, then bad things are going to happen to Ben, apparently. But then bad things happen to Ben anyway, so it's like, hmm. So, yeah, because she was also a trained Jedi, apparently, which is, it makes that whole thing even more awkward. It's just like, yeah.
now that you say that, now I'm just even more pissed because I
Yeah,
didn't even.
like, yeah, that's what makes that whole thing like even more of a mess because it's like she is a trained Jedi and she apparently didn't want to keep training in order to protect her kid, but then she's like, no, I'm just gonna pass him off to you, Luke, because I'm worried that if I train, then somehow something bad is gonna happen, but then something bad happens anyway. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's essentially just to let you guys know the basic version is Leia was more focused on, rebuilding the government, and then Han was kind of doing his own thing with his racing team. They sent him off to Luke to hopefully be trained. And then the funny thing is, in The Last Jedi that we see like the destroyed temple and whatever, and that makes you assume that Ben Solo destroyed and killed everyone when in fact I think like a huge lightning bolt came out of the sky out of nowhere and actually destroyed the temple and killed people. Like, he didn't kill a fucking person. Other Jedi that like came back and arrived.
It said that in
I,
The Kylo Ren
yeah,
comic, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I was
yeah.
like,
So
wait, so this whole thing that kept showing during all these previews, it wasn't even Kylo Ren that did that? Like,
yeah, they just assumed that it was him.
yeah.
And then no one found fucking Luke apparently out of the living Jedi. So it's like this whole, and God bless you, or whatever higher power force bless you if you enjoy the films. And honestly, I wish I could, because I want to love Star Wars. I want to enjoy Star Wars. But to hear even Adam Driver's comments saying, I thought we were going to see this, but we
Hmm.
didn't. It's like, not saying that an actor necessarily has the best, mindset for storytelling in the world, because I mean, there's a reason they act, and
Hmm.
some actors are gifted with writing abilities and can write stories. But to me, it just seems like it's just so fucking obvious that you needed to see some of that backstory and
Yeah.
understand why did he do any of what he did. Why was he so mad at Han Solo? The only reason I got emotional watching that scene was because I really loved Han Solo
Hmm.
when he died in The Force Awakens. And to me, it's just so sad to see him die off and be killed by his son, because you feel like, that he loves him. And
Yeah.
Adam Driver's acting in The Rise of Skywalker and Harrison Ford's, the only reason I felt emotional is because they're such good actors.
Hmm.
If it would have been anyone else and it wasn't executed right, it would have just made me more confused, because there is nothing is truly earned in either of those moments, where in The Force Awakens you barely get the idea that he's his son.
Hmm.
Just, oh, your father's Han Solo, cool.
That's kind of why they had to like spell it out for us. It's like, and it's in the hands of your father, Han Solo, and it's like, I mean, thanks for like spelling that out for us. But yeah, uh, then that's like the one line in Force Awakens that it's always bothered me is when Snoke is talking to him. He's like, "It's in the hands of your father, Han Solo." And I'm like, you didn't have to say Han Solo. We understood. Like, who else would be his father on that ship? Chewbacca? Like, it's like you don't have to tell us. But yeah, that's the one thing is we don't know a goddamn thing about Ben Solo. It's like, sure, we know about Kylo Ren. We know a little bit about why he turned, kind of. But we literally don't know shit about Ben Solo. Like, the few things we got is like, oh, he used to be such a nice boy. Or it's just like, like shit like that. It's like, say what you will about Jake Lloyd or whatever, but at least we know some shit about fucking Anakin before he became, before he became a Jedi, before he became Vader. We know shit about Anakin. It's like, it helps you connect to this character because we understand these things. So yeah, it's like we don't know anything about him. I mean, even that's kind of a problem with the movies in general. We don't know much about a lot of the characters like before. We know that fucking Poe was a spice runner now. I guess that's something.
Yeah, but to me, it's like I get where you're coming from, but I don't need to know everything about everyone's backstory. But the main characters, like, I feel like I understand where Rey came from for the most part, even though it was a convoluted mess of shit
If
for
I
a lot of it.
yeah.
But with Ben, the only reason I know about him is because I've read the supplemental material. And I shouldn't even call it supplemental because it shouldn't supplement your big fucking story. You put your story, as I ranted earlier, on the big screen. You could have easily, even just to tie some shit up to give us some context. And I know JJ was trying to patch up a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like, there's that chunk of time after he becomes Ben, or goes back and reverts back to Ben Solo. If there would have been just even like some time flashbacks or something, if he's like meditating, trying to get himself ready, like maybe we see little flashbacks of him as a kid or something, and like that shit that happened to him. Maybe like just because he renounces himself, maybe we see like him struggling a little bit just to make sure he's fully in it. Like, hey, you know what? I forgive them. I know that they were trying to do their best, and maybe it didn't come out the way that we all wanted, but you
Yeah.
know what? I'm going to fight for it.
I'm like,
Something.
like I know we hate on the sequels a lot because they were disappointing overall, But I understand like they had to go through, just the director quitting. Carrie Fisher died in the middle of like making one, and it's like that's really hard to recover from because she's one of the biggest characters in Star Wars, So it's like I understand that, and then obviously Last Jedi didn't go the way that they thought it was gonna go. Not to indirectly quote Luke, but yeah, I understand that it's like really hard, but it's like we talked about before. It's like if you're in a situation, especially with somebody like Carrie Fisher who dies, you kind of have to like step back for a little bit and just be like, take another year or something. It's like we get it, you have the schedule, but obviously the product wasn't what people wanted, so you got to they should have taken it like a step back or something.
I mean, initially it was supposed to come out in May of last year, and I mean, I guess a step back would be to December, but it just makes me really wonder, would have more time even have been beneficial? Because it's just a convoluted mess, and it's like,
And the
I
problem,
know hindsight bias is 2020, but it's like, how do you not see these issues from a creative standpoint right away? Where, and I've always said this analogy, and I hate saying this over and over, broken record, but it's like, you need to connect the dots. You need to have planned something this massive. You have point A and follow it all the way down the alphabet to point Z. You can plot out little things here and there, but you got to make sure you get from there to there somehow, some way.
It was kind of like Force Awakens, this point, and then like Last Jedi was like up here, this point, and then they like tried to go between this point and this point over here, the the Rise of Skywalker. And it was just, yeah, you talked about before, if JJ kind of would have just had all three, but because of that whole Colin Trevorrow thing, and then they already, because he quit while they were doing like Last Jedi, right? It's like there's not really, they had a lot of bad circumstances, so I get that. But yeah, in that case, they should have taken a step back on a lot of this stuff and just kind of been like, let's take some time and like figure out where we want to go with this. But they kind of just went with it because they're like, we gotta put these out, make our billions.
Here's the thing too, and that I will make a note of, and I'll probably bring up also in our next segment that we're going to end up talking about right now too, is that you might make your billions off the top on the movie, but to me, that's not looking at the grand scheme of things. Yes, you make the billion, well, only billion off of Rise of Skywalker. Not that it's not an extreme amount of money that most films don't achieve, but yeah, you make whatever off of it. But in the grand scheme of things, how many people are going to go back and buy shit from it and product and stuff? That's the big thing with it, is movie can make a lot of money. But you know what movie made quite a bit of money, but made billions in fucking merchandise, was Cars. Probably their biggest franchise. Just selling Cars shit. Because people, it's a great movie and people loved it. And they kept going back to it and wanting shit from it. They love that franchise. I mean, the thing that you have to look at is like, if you take your time, you plan it out right, in the long run, you're going to make a return on your investment in the franchise. That's just good business. That's not even just saying from a creative standpoint either. If you're just looking at a business aspect, if you put more time and effort into something, you'll get a return, usually a more significant one. Yeah, it might be good right now just to go ahead and make a movie real quick, not plan shit. Oh yeah, we made $2 billion off The Force Awakens. Made a shitload off of the merchandise for that because everyone was excited for it. And it was a pretty decent movie. But then, let's get two other directors and not tell them really much and just go, oh, go do whatever you want. That's not how you run a business.
Yeah,
you look at a formulaic plan that works.
so much
J.J. Abrams worked. Just give him a few years and extra time. That's why he didn't want to do the second one, because you wanted to put too much and throw him into it again and exhaust him.
Yeah, as soon as he was like done with the other one, I would have been interested to see what would have happened if they did give him a little bit more time and just had him do like all three of those. Because like we said before, J.J. Abrams isn't not a terrible director. He's not bad. He's good, but a lot of his things are just kind of like good. Like I can't think of too much about J.J. Abrams that's like super amazing or anything, but he's solid. Like he does solid work. But yeah, this whole trilogy just kind of. I feel like a lot of people are angry at JJ because of the last movie and everything. And I think there's probably still some people that are angry at him about the end of Lost, but it's a whole other conversation. But yeah, and some people that are angry at him about, what is it, Star Trek? So like he's good, but so I don't know how that would have gone, but
I honestly don't harbor really any resentment, to be honest, with JJ, because here's the thing. I don't blame him because he had to deal with a lot of bullshit to come onto the project.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is he probably cracked a little bit under the pressure from having to pull this, because Carrie died and he worked with Carrie and got really close with her. And I can imagine the toll that must have taken on him. fan expectation to close the whole thing. And I'm not saying that it's the fans' fault by any chance, because you know what? As much as people want to say fandom is toxic, and it can be, I've seen it, and I've had people shit on me and hate me or whatever the fuck. But you know what? You know that a majority of the fans are good, decent people, and a
Mm.
majority are just really casual fans. And that's, totally cool or whatever.
Yeah, it's just the loudest
He
ones will be
would
the
be
toxic ones a lot of time. But most fans that I talk to in person or whatever, like they're cool. They just want to see good Star Wars. That's it. Like,
and to that, I mean, some people, I mean, everyone's version of what is good and what is not, it's subjective. But from a storytelling standpoint, it's not good. And even I know storytelling, like I said, is subjective, but there's no follow through really with any of this. You just have to kind of guess and piece it together.
mhm.
Like, my theories mostly come out of just me interpreting it some way. It's not a very clear, concise thing. Like, my whole thing was trying to defend the character of Rey because I do enjoy her for the most part. It's mostly because I'm guessing. It's not because it's been something that's been told, where I say, Rey's struggle isn't with the Force, it's finding a place and sense of belonging.
Mhm.
That's my take on it, but it's not something that.
Yeah, I've always thought of Ray as another kind of Anakin character where it's like he's just super powerful. Like we're not worried about that. He's just trying to control his anger, his emotions, and all that. That was his issue. We're not worried about whether Anakin can use the Force and how well he can use it. You know, he
Yeah.
needs to try and control his emotions and everything, or turn into. I mean, obviously we know he's gonna turn into Vader, so it's like that's what we're watching. It's like that's what we're understanding. It's like Anakin doesn't struggle with these things. He's the chosen one. He has this power, but it's like, what's he gonna do to try and hold back these, dark thoughts, these dark feelings, and everything? So, yeah,
And Anakin, I also don't feel like he was ever, what they say, OP or overpowered, because you do see him struggle and have to go against these things in the movies themselves. The struggle between him and Padme, his love, and versus like the Jedi Code. That's a struggle that he has. Or he got his ass kicked by Count Dooku
hmm
in that fight. He held up for a while, but if Dooku really wanted to, he could have ended both Kenobi and Anakin. He
yeah,
basically used them as practice.
yeah, like, mhm. And then that's another thing that kind of leads to him. It's like the path that he ends up going down, where he, ends up killing Dooku later. And I feel like that's something that we don't really get with Ray, and that's not really like it's obviously not the character's fault, the actress's fault. It's just they didn't write it into the story. It's like we don't get to see like these things that like motivate her, or the things that she's trying to like overcome, because we're mostly just kind of getting this convoluted idea between these movies about, oh, who are her parents, where is she from, why was she left on this planet, and that's kind of all we got, rather than like, and then the dad with Raylo, with I said Raylo, wow, with Kylo, yeah. And like the things we got with her and Kylo were good, but yeah, I would have liked to see more about, like, we could have had something about what it was like for her to grow up in Jakku. She was apparently raised by how the fuck do you say his name? Uncle Plut.
Yeah, Unkar
Yeah.
Plutt.
I feel like there could have been something with all that stuff or something. It just, but the thing is, the Force Awakens, he was keeping it very under wraps, because with the expectation that questions would be answered in the next movie, and then they weren't. So it's just, yeah,
I I don't know, man. I mean, as much as I do love talking about, Star Wars and stuff, it always comes back to these points because a lot of it is this is what we have to work with right now.
Hmm.
And it is a big deal because it is going to shape whatever happens next. We have no idea what the next fucking Star Wars movie is even going to be. We thought it was going to be one thing, but we don't even know if that's still going to happen with like the old Republic kind of feel with Benioff and Weiss. Are they still keeping that idea alive and just going to use somebody else? So, and I do enjoy the Clone Wars immensely, and then we just got it. I enjoy 8 out of those 12 episodes, and I do enjoy the Mandalorian for sure. But Star Wars is first and foremost a film series. That's where it should live primarily. It's an event that you go to, and when that event, it's like showing up for a band that you really love, like Guns N' Roses, and Axl Rose doesn't even show up till 3 hours later, or if at all. And you're just kind of like, too little, too late, motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's kind of what these movies have kind of felt like, where it's like you get super hyped because the trailer looks good and you cry and get all emotional or whatever, like I did. And I thought, man, JJ did it. He fucking did it. Oh, praise Abrams. And then when I went into that movie theater, I thought the movie was great. And then I kept watching it and I kept getting more and more disappointed.
Yeah, it's like I actually went in there and I wasn't watching any of the trailers or anything because I just like I want to go in there with like no expectations. I saw the first trailer obviously where they're like, oh, Palpatine's in it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. But I went there with no expectations, and when I got out, like as soon as I got out, I was like, I thought that was pretty good. Like they put a lot of stuff in there that was like, kind of like a love letter to like Star Wars stuff. That was cool. But then like the more I thought about it and I saw it again, I was like, oh, that's kind of problematic. I was like, oh, that's kind of, and it's like the more I watch them, it's like, oh, and then literally what we just talked about with like Leia and everything, and when the more you think about it, you're just like, well, shit, that doesn't make sense with what fucking Adam Driver said now. And it's just kind of like, yeah, it's upsetting, but I think it shows that us as fans, because we're trying to fill in these like blanks so much, that's how much of fans we are, and a lot of people are. Is we want to like it. We really, really, really want to like it, and we want to fill in these blanks to like help us understand it and like it more. But
It
it's tough because it's just such a
mess.
mess between every movie. It's like this doesn't really go with this. This doesn't really go with this, and it's not good when your trilogy doesn't fit together as a trilogy.
And I mean, I do get that a majority of fans, I mean, what I was told by my friend who does work at Lucasfilm, or one of them, is that he was telling me, like, you and I are like the 10% that really, really care. And then mostly, the films are for like the other 90% plus us, kind of. And that's understandable. But even for that other 90%, as much as they won't pick apart things are just kind of jarring, even if you were to watch it from that perspective, because it's like they don't piece together well and they don't make that much sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even just on the nitpicky stuff that already has a bunch of issues with it on its own. But
The main things, the stories and character motivations, they're just so like completely different throughout every movie. And just as a regular watcher, that's got to be like really kind of
like, what the hell?
yeah. So this character was completely different in the first movie. I don't understand either. Yeah.
I mean, you could argue you really have no idea what Vader's motivation is in A New Hope, and I could definitely see that because you really have no clue as to why he's the bad guy. You can just tell he's the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with Kylo Ren, but I think, at least I like to think more so now that audiences have at least try to be a little more thoughtful about the content that they watch and are a little more choosy. And I feel like, it would be good to know the motivations and stuff. It's like when you watch any of the Marvel movies or anything, like you see why a character does the things that they do and you learn about them.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren, we have no idea why he wants to do the things he does. He just does them, and we don't know why.
Yeah. And, I mean, and movies in general are different. Like, I get that. Back in the 80s, it was a little bit simpler, where a lot of the 80s movies were like, here's the concept, and here's a bunch of like things that happen around it, like all the, I don't know, like 16 Candles and Weird Science and all these kind of movies, like Revenge of the Nerds type of shit, where it's like very simple concept, like these characters doing this, and obviously like the climate around movies is different because they could do different shit back then. It's like people, they're not gonna like the same jokes. They're not gonna understand things the same way. So it's like, I get from that standpoint, it's a little more difficult, and people will want more story and like understanding of things than they would back then. But yeah, it's just, even so, you can still understand like things better in like the original trilogy than even this. And like they didn't even know that they were going to be making these other movies after A New Hope, and it's still like somehow, like
I get you, man. But I think we should probably move on to our next and probably our final topic as far as time goes.
famous rant. Let's go.
All right, it's gonna be a big one. I know we just shit on a bunch of other stuff, but get ready for this shit pile. But as I said, I mean, we do love The Mandalorian, and as I've gone back and watched it, that's something that like I've said before, that the first time watching it, I was disappointed about certain things. I think it was just because that expectation of building up week to week on the releases. But going back and actually watching it again, like I like it more. I mean, I liked it quite a bit when I saw it, but there's things that I really love in it still, or I love even more so now. And there's nothing really that I have too many issues with The Mandalorian. Um, there's like little nitpick things, but to me, it's like a really good, cohesive Star Wars story that it feels really grounded, and the characters are amazing, and you want to learn more about them because at least we know enough and have gotten things, seen little things here and there to understand why they're motivated to do the things that they do, which is like an issue that we had with, like we just said, like the sequel trilogy. So, and anyway, I digress. Jon Favreau has recently come out and he made some statements about how he's saying, it's like a two-way street as far as, fandom and, making, a series or any kind of content really. And I think that's one of the best things that he could have said with anything, honestly. That you have, he was basically saying, like I've been in comedy, and when you're in comedy, you have to read a room, you have to know your audience, and you have to feed off of them. And it's not just making Star Wars because we love Star Wars, but we also make Star Wars because we love making Star Wars that we know people will love. And that's something that is something it's something that he really kind of hones in on, that idea of making Star Wars that people will love. And to me, that is the type of person that you want in charge of Lucasfilm. Someone with that mindset and mentality is the type of person that should be running that studio. And I think it's been severely lacking over there, especially with the rumors of Kathleen Kennedy saying that we're not making stuff for like 50 somethings. It's a new generation of Star Wars. We're not really looking back at the old anymore. That's not the kind of mindset you want. You want someone that pulls everyone together and not separates anyone. It's
everybody
kind of,
everybody loves The Mandalorian. Like most people who have seen The Mandalorian that I know have fucking loved it. If they don't like the action and all that stuff, they don't care about that. People fucking love Baby Yoda. Everybody loves Baby Yoda. They found a way to just like bring everybody in, and people love it. And Yeah, I love that statement from John Favreau.
Yeah.
Favreau. I can't never say his name right, but yeah, I honestly feel like he could be kind of the Kevin Feige of the Star Wars stuff, you know. And yeah, I would love for like we say it so many times. I'd love for Dave Filoni to be like kind of like second in command or something like there too. But Dave Filoni has already expressed that he's not really, you know, looking to be like, doing too much like in terms of being in charge. But I think he could do it. But I think Kevin Feige, like having a Kevin Feige kind of role, John Favreau could definitely do that. He's been in the industry just in general for so long. I think he understands every aspect, and he would do a good job. And I mean, Kathleen Kennedy has had. There's been some good things. Like we've had Rogue One and stuff like that. Obviously, she's a part of like putting together, the Mandalorian and all this other shit. But yeah, this with like the big things, like you said, it's about the mainline movies. Those are the big events. Those are like the money makers, and those have just been lacking. And you look at the Solo or something like it's just they haven't done well. So it's like maybe you put her more in the capacity of like smaller things like shows and things like that. But then you put somebody else who's in charge of kind of like the big, like the movies and everything. I don't know, but something needs to be done overall. I would say because you have to find a way to bring in everybody who loves Star Wars.
You want to. Here's the biggest tell between. And I agree with you. She has to touch everything that is Star Wars. There is nothing that, at least as far as we know, where she hasn't been at least a part of it because she is the head of Lucasfilm. But here's the big difference between Jon Favreau Star Wars and a Kathleen Kennedy Star Wars. And like I said, I know that she's a part of everything. She has to be in some way or shape or form. However, with Jon Favreau Star Wars, you have pre-orders that sell out and then more pre-orders that sell out for Mandalorian merchandise. You have people willing to spend a crap ton on aftermarket figures for the Mandalorian because they've been sold out.
Mm-hmm.
Under Kathleen Kennedy with Last Jedi figures and merchandise, that shit gets clearanced out, and even then, people don't want to fucking buy them. I literally saw Black Series figures, and I'm not saying this is the entirety of the movie industry. I know that. Black Series Rose Tico figures, which are normally retail price of $21.99 or $19.99. Someone tried to sell what a special called a dozen roses for $12. So 12 of those $20 figures for $12. And it's like, and then just all the other figures and merchandise that go along with the only reason Force Awakens is because it was a pretty solid film and the hype up to it. But once you get to The Last Jedi, that shit kind of wavers. And even The Rise of Skywalker, the reason a lot of that stuff sold was because it's J.J. Abrams and we think he's going to do The Force Awakens again, at least in the terms of it being really liked. But
Mm-hmm.
after that, there's still a lot of merchandise that's just sitting around because the movie wasn't that fucking great. The people that are gonna buy the merch are the diehard fans and the kids that like it. Baby Yoda sold out, or the child sold out in droves, and people still want more shit with it
Mm-hmm.
because people genuinely like it and are willing to put their time and money to find things that have that character or the Mandalorian. That is what you want. Someone who makes content that unites at least a big portion of the fan base.
I'd also be curious how well the merchandise for the Solo movie sold because I feel like that would not
It
sell
sucked
well.
dick.
Like who like I said, I love Childish Gambino. Well, sorry, Donald Glover, but I wouldn't want to buy an action figure of Lando that looks like Donald Glover. That just, you know what I mean? Like that's You know what? I want I would want Lando. Like I wouldn't want Donald Glover. Lando he was good, but yeah, it's just
And I mean, that merchandise was, and I will say, I don't blame Solo entirely just on the film itself. A big part of that was because of Avengers Infinity War coming out, I think within like a few weeks of it.
yeah,
Basically, retailers were told you need to push Avengers Infinity War merchandise. Don't worry about Solo. So that was a big part of it too, is that there wasn't merchandise beforehand really,
yeah,
because they were more focused on making Avengers successful versus Solo, which bit it in the ass. And it was also released 5 months after The Last Jedi basically cut the fan base in half.
yeah.
Because Force Awakens, I remember there was like some people kind of complaining here and there, but most people enjoyed it. Most people were super excited about Kylo Ren, Rey, Poe, Finn, whatever. And then you got The Last Jedi, and then everyone just went,
hmm Yeah, and then that's when all the stuff started with like how Star Wars fans are uh Star Wars fans are toxic or whatever. And like I when that came out, I dealt with some people because I remember when I first saw Last Jedi, I would kind of defend it. I'm like I didn't like love it, but y'all are like doing too much. And I remember I would like argue with people about it, and there were people that were
yeah,
toxic, absolutely. But the majority of the concerns were pretty. They were they were legitimate. I was like, yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I get you. And over the years, the more I watched Last Jedi, because I remember when I first came out, I ranked it. I right around the same that I did with like the Rise of Skywalker. Now Rise of Skywalker, I made that list. I'd honestly rank it like a few places lower. Like the more I think about it, because like the thing we just talked about, where I'm like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And then it just makes you angry because it's like with Leia and everything, and that's kind of how it was with like Last Jedi. And I'm just like, I just gotta rank it a little bit lower because I just can't. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. At this point, I think I rank probably the last two sequels, so Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, probably lower than any of the prequels. Not
Except
like
for I can't tackle it. I'm sorry.
I think I'd rather watch Attack of the Clones than Rise of Skywalker, to be honest. Like Rise of Skywalker just pisses me off because this is not way to close 40 years of whatever.
Yeah.
But as far as just going back to what John Favreau said, and I'll read the quote verbatim. Just he says, "You put something out in the world, and then it goes back to you." Um, about the feedback loop involved when working on any Star Wars property, and he says you have to listen. It's not a one-way street; it's a two-way street. You have to feel the energy of the audience. But when you come from comedy, because he has a comedy background, and I was doing improv back in Chicago, that's it. You have to read the room. You have to feel the room. You have to be in community with the audience. You have to be a part of it. And I think that has been the biggest thing and
Mm-hmm.
slap in the face that Kathleen Kennedy, Disney, to an extent, they've just label people that don't like their shit as toxic fans. There is a way to not like a product and not be toxic, which is a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, I'm not going to sit here and say that you should put her head on a pike or threaten a director or anything or an actor who's just doing their job. I'm never going to say kill someone or you should, I hope something bad happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing I would want to happen is just you don't deserve your job.
Yeah.
You don't deserve to be where you're at because you know what? You might have had a successful career. And I will always say Kathleen Kennedy is one of the best producers in Hollywood, hands down, because of everything she's worked on and built. She's fucking great at that.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to doing that and being successful. Stop running and dragging our franchise through the fucking mud. Because you know what? I'm sick and tired of it. I don't want to see the thing that I've loved as a kid be destroyed by stupid decisions. And I'm going to not just call out her. Even Bob Iger, in his autobiography, admitted he was wrong in the way that he handled and dealt with Star Wars because he's her boss.
Yeah.
And to me, you need to be careful. I don't get how Bob Iger was so successful with picking up Pixar, picking up Marvel, and then you fuck up Star Wars. Star Wars shouldn't be this. I don't get how you screw up Star Wars because here's the thing. With Marvel, you have so many different storylines that you have to correlate because there's all of this material out there in the world that you can cherry pick from, but you still have to break it down into these stories and make a universe. Star Wars, the only storyline you had was one thing, the continuation of the Skywalker saga. That is all you needed to do to be successful. And then there's these lies that come out, with Kennedy saying that there was no source material. It's not like we can pick out anything. Bullshit. George gave you the fucking treatments for 7, 8, and 9, or whatever other projects he had. So don't lie and say that you didn't have shit to work off of.
And it's funny that you say that, right? Because when they acquired Marvel, like Marvel has all these comic books, all these things, and you can look at that and be like, oh, well, they got Marvel and they have all this, source material to work off, all these comics and stuff, and it's like, so does Star Wars. But what did they do? The first thing they did when they started this, and everybody was worried about it when it happened, and you see what happened, is they're like, yeah, these are legends now, they're not canon. And it's like, you could have just used these. You could have just gone off of these books, these comics, these video games, like all these things that already exist that people obviously love. And they just didn't. And it's like, yeah. And like I said, I'm not mad about the characters that we got. I'm just mad about the story that we ended up getting between all these. Like I thought it was all set up really well and it could have been something good, but they kind of decided we're gonna go with like these random force powers and all this other stuff, and just, but it's already there. Like it's already like so many things laid out that they could have gone off of, even with Palpatine and all this other stuff. If they wanted to put them in there, So, just, yeah.
And I definitely agree. I mean, I do understand what I'll kind of push back on is making those things legends, only because with legends there are a bunch of storylines. I think initially they were breaking it into, I think, like canon A, canon B, C, and D, because there were lines that were kind of jacked up because this one had a through line, this one had a through line, this one had a through line, and they contradict one another, so they made it legends just to kind of simplify it.
Yeah.
But they always said they could cherry pick stuff like Thrawn. They brought him into the fold and made his character fit their dynamic. And essentially, if you look at it, all Kylo Ren and Rey are just kind of a bastardization of the Solo twins.
Yeah.
Jason is fucking Kylo Ren, and then Jaina Solo is Rey, except she belonged to the Emperor somehow now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think any there's shit on them if they, I mean, I'm sure some people would to an extent, but if you would have just adapted those stories, kept the same names, but if you wanted to change some stuff, go for it. But they weren't the worst of stories. Some of those are pretty good. Just get rid of the convoluted crap and make it fit your thing. You would have had a great fucking Luke Skywalker. You would have had him actually have a wife and another badass female character in Mara Jade. And if you wanted more stormtroopers, sure, bring in a Finn. Or if you want another cool X-Wing pilot, bring in a Poe. You can add flavor to it, like you said. Just pick from, legends if you wanted to continue and use that source material. No one said that you had to come up with a completely original concept. To me, that's just like, I need to do it just because. No, you didn't. You had material to work with.
And to be honest, when you talked about it, like the those people who didn't like Force Awakens, those are like the few people, and I get it because it was like really close to um, A New Hope and everything, like the way that went. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. A New Hope was good, like, and The Force Awakens was a good movie. And then Last Jedi just went completely like somewhere else, and it's just like it's almost like are they not listening, or are they listening too much sometimes? Like, do they see like some people like, well, that was too much like A New Hope, and then like, oh, we gotta make the next one not like A New Hope, guys. We have to make it not like Empire at all. And it's like, if there's a movie that you're gonna fucking copy Empire. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, they had aspects of it, but they weren't that great. Like those pseudo AT-AT walkers that look like elephants, or that had like the gorilla fists or whatever.
yeah,
Like, I thought they were kind of cool, but it looked more like an animal, which was weird because it did have those weird crawl fist looking things.
and I'm
But
like, why did they? I mean, I guess you could ask why they designed the AT-AT anyway, like in general, but why did they change the design to an ape thing? I don't know. Like, yeah, it's
but I mean, my argument for The Force Awakens is that, and someone, I forgot who was telling me, but like the first 2/3 of that movie feel pretty solid, and then it kind of diverts into, oh, here's another Death Star. That part to me is really what the A New Hope kind of feel really hits close to home, and it seems kind of wasted because like 2/3 of the movie you talk about trying to find Luke Skywalker, and then, oh, here's a big Death Star. That's kind of what rolls my eyes. So for me, it's like an 80% movie or so, where it's like first 2/3 pretty strong and it gets pretty decent, and then okay.
you know what?
But
We'll probably end up, because we've been thinking about it, do like a whole series where we talk about each movie like individually. Because otherwise,
yeah,
during these, we'll just keep talking about the damn movie for like an hour. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I understand that, but I did feel like The Force Awakens had plenty of shit that was on like its own thing. I thought it stood out enough, but it also followed like a formula that we recognized, and that was good. And so I wasn't mad about it. So
I think essentially they played it safe just to kind of bring back the nostalgia factor and to bring like new fans and old fans together, which it did.
and it worked, because I was so fucking excited for Last Year that I was so pumped. I was like, oh my god, yes.
Like I was at Celebration and I saw that trailer for it and I was like, "Oh shit, this is going to be good." And I watched the movie and I'm like, "I don't know if it was good." I watched it again. I still don't know if it was good. I watched it again. Eh.
No, maybe this is good.
Yeah. But I think there's one last topic I want to talk about since I just mentioned Celebration. Unfortunately, Star Wars Celebration has been canceled
Mhm.
for this year. Supposed to take place later this August, and due to COVID, they have postponed it to August in 2022, which is unfortunate. I'm guessing it's 2022 because they're probably going to do a flip flop between hosting D23, which is Disney's big expo they do every 2 years, and next year D23 is supposed to probably happen still in 2021.
Mhm.
So they moved Anaheim Celebration. But what is more disappointing about that is, or not even so much, I mean, it is disappointing, but what's also confusing is we don't really know how they're going to do announcements for projects because usually the big shit is announced at Celebration. So, I mean,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts on that one?
I think we talked about this a little bit before, and I haven't gotten to go to a celebration before. I've obviously watched, stuff from it, and you've been to celebration, so you understand like that whole atmosphere. And yeah, it's not the same. It's like we were talking about with the EA Play. So like, sure, people, a lot of people feel like me with EA, where it's like, oh, it's EA, I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt, but you can get excited about things more when it's in person, when there's a big event. even when you're watching at home and you just see people reacting to it, you're just like, okay, like these people kind of like it. Maybe they they understand something I don't. It could be cool. I don't know. I might check it out. And it's just a whole different feeling. And if they decide to like just throw some trailers up or something during August, it's just not going to be like some trailers or something. I don't know. I don't know what they would throw up. Like I don't know what they would put up there. And that's the thing. It's like what could they possibly put out, and like how would they talk about it if it's just an online thing? And I know that a lot of companies can do that, but yeah, Star Wars is one of those things where you talk about it's an event. That's a big part of it, like gathering fans around, to enjoy these things in theaters and a big convention like a show. That's just how it's always been. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It being online wouldn't be the same.
That's for sure. I mean, the only way that I could possibly see it maybe is if they do have a location where they live stream panels. Like Lucasfilm has a few hundred person theater in their actual headquarters in San Francisco, which I've had the pleasure of being at a couple times. If they do presentations from there and live stream them,
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be at least something kind of cool. So at least there is somewhat of a panel, because I do enjoy watching the panels like after the fact.
Yeah.
If they do something like that kind of internally, so they might, or maybe even have like fans like raffle off like, hey, you want to come to San Francisco and be part of like this tiny little thing. So it's like you get an audience in there, and then you can also show off the new stuff that you have and play trailers live. Like that would be, it wouldn't come close to the actual thing, but at least you have that kind of feel to it, because I think they're going to have to announce stuff sooner or later, because it's like you want something to look forward to. I
Right there.
mean, for a lot of people, this moment was supposed to be like the highlight of our year. This was the only thing I've been looking forward to forever, and it's gone. So it's like, please give us some beacon of hope to keep looking forward to something Star Wars.
Yeah. I'm like they have to announce something. I feel like they're not going to go without it. And there's like some creative ways they can do it for sure. So it'd be interesting to see if they can come up with a creative way. Because like I said, I feel like dropping some trailers or just showing like one person up there talking at a time or something, and we just like watch it. Although it could be interesting depending on who's speaking and everything. But yeah, I think they'll try to come up with creative ways to kind of drop some stuff since there's not an actual convention. Maybe give us ways that we can, like incentives, right? If we watch, and kind of that EA Play thing tried to do that. They're like, oh, look out for these letters in here, and if you see them, then you can go on this website, put this in, and win some prizes or something. Maybe they could do something like that, and you can get like some cool Star Wars memorabilia like mailed to you or something. I don't know, but yeah, it's gonna be tough. I was gonna say fuck COVID-19 first off, because it's just ruining so much shit. But there's not much we can do about it right now. And yeah, I hope sooner rather than later it's I mean, I wouldn't say gone, but it's contained more. But I don't know. So some people out there are not helping contain it. But yeah, it's just hopefully we can be able to return to doing normal things and enjoying these things that we love. Uh,
Yeah, it is just, it's a whirlwind of shit, honestly. I think, like you were saying, creative ways of doing it. I would hope, and I would have to think that their publicity team and marketing team is doing something about it, because
mhm.
I think probably the way that I would see, because I mean, my way of thinking, like what I said, would be cool to, have like fans, go up to like Lucasfilm and just be in that theater and like do presentations from there. Or if you had like presentations by whoever's doing those shows, just invite them up to San Francisco for a day or two since, various schedules, like a few days of that, and just doing like live presentations through their theater and streaming them to the world, and then having like people Skype in to talk about it, like, Ewan McGregor with the Kenobi series, like,
Yeah,
oh, we're planning on doing this, and you're really gonna see a lot of great things, and Mandalorian season 2 comes out in October, or, have John Favreau, like, here's the trailer for the Mandalorian 2, and then maybe do like an online Q&A through Twitter or something,
yeah,
it's just,
yeah. Like I don't know if you watched the any of that. There's like a PS5 that event that like, happened or whatever. It
yeah.
was like all online. So I think it was like an hour and 30 minutes. I think they actually did a pretty good job. Like I'm not like a huge like PlayStation person or anything. I like to watch like these kind of game reveals just to see like what new stuff's going out. And I thought they did a good job with their presentation where they had something like that. Where it's like they show this trailer, this gameplay, whatever, and then they would have somebody kind of like Skype in or Zoom in, whatever they used, and they would like talk about it while also showing some more stuff. They would have people. I'm assuming they're probably at home or something, but they kind of had like like green screens or something behind them, and they can like put stuff behind them, just kind of just these cool things like in like graphics and stuff. So I could see them doing something like that maybe if they decide to do this kind of online thing, have people like Skype in or they're recording themselves or somebody's recording them in like these certain places. And then yeah, I think there's some cool ways they could do it because I just feel like they're gonna have to do something because that's such a big event, you know.
And I think the other thing that's also it's a s- it was I mean, this whole year is supposed to be about celebrating 40 years of the Empire Strikes Back, and that
Mhm.
was what the theme of celebration was going to be. And it's going to be in 2022, which is going to be the 20th anniversary of Attack of the Clones, and I'm kind of hoping that
Mm,
that
mhm.
it's at least shared or split, because the other thing too is when you every celebration they plan out like special exclusives. So there's like exclusive Funko Pops and Hasbro figures and toys from other vendors. I'm really hoping, because I feel like all of that has to have already produced, if not like ready to produce and be stored in a warehouse or something.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they kind of split the difference and they'll do half and half, and they'll still celebrate it since we didn't get the chance to do it really this year.
Mhm.
And still sell two different kinds of exclusives. Like, oh, here's some Attack of the Clone stuff, here's some Empire stuff.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's like the companies that invested in developing these awesome exclusives, like they're gonna lose money. So I'm kind of wondering if they're just gonna post that shit online, which I really hope they don't do,
Yeah.
because there's gonna be a bunch of people that weren't gonna go to Celebration, and they're gonna end up buying it and then trying to resell it for a bunch of money, which happens at Celebration anyway. But
Mhm.
like for me, like I love Empire Strikes Back. Like I want the cool shit.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect, and like more of a collecting thing, which we don't tend to talk about, but it's
Mhm.
one of those things where it's just a disappointment. And like the thing with Celebration too is it's a great chance to meet a lot of people that have worked on the movies, especially actors and stuff, because they have like an autograph hall and photo ops, which I always love doing.
Yeah.
And I was really hoping Ewan McGregor was going to be there, because he said he learned something from William Shatner where the greatest experience he's had is like meeting fans. So he was going to do his first convention this year.
Hmm.
And since COVID, it was
It's
canceled, and he was
crazy.
planning on doing more.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
he's,
Huh.
I
Yeah,
was
that would have
like,
been cool.
fuck.
Yeah,
Like,
that would be cool though.
yeah, I mean, hopefully you guys stuck with us this long, and and trust us, both Will and I, we do love Star Wars, but if you, and I mean, we do like to talk about the positive things about it. I mean, we're excited for a lot that is going to be coming up, but I mean, you also have to understand where we come from, where we, it's understandable for us to be, kind of, skeptical about what's coming up, because
Mhm.
it, we both been greatly disappointed by quite a bit of what has come out. It's not to say that nothing good has come out, and we will go into more positive things because we are planning on doing, a little series of about 9 episodes where we break down each film, what we love about it, what we don't like about it, and things that we would change if we could.
Yeah.
So I mean, we don't get us wrong when we talk negatively about stuff. It's just because we're fans and we like dissecting it. There is going to be a lot more positive stuff coming out, and we love Star Wars first and foremost. That's the only reason we do this. It's not to hate on anything, it's just to share our opinions. So we
Just
love you guys out there.
you just want to pull out like the good things that we love about these movies, especially because they're canon. Like we want to understand the canon as best we can because like we said before, we'll obsess over it. Like I said, I know more about Star Wars history than regular history probably. So it's like that's really important to me to know like what these characters are about, where they came from, like why they're doing the things they do, and where that originated. Like, yeah, it'll bother me over time if I don't have any sort of context. So I
Yeah.
just need to know. And I'm hoping, like I said before, that we can get some more supplemental like material, maybe shows like related to these sequels that kind of like help fill in some of these gaps. I don't know, but yeah, I just hope for something like Clone Wars. Really, it made me like the clones and all this other stuff. So who knows what they can do, but hopefully something good.
There's always balance in the force, ladies and gentlemen, and we promise there is more positive to come. Like I said, we are going to do that 9-part series, and it'll probably be split up where half of the conversation is about the film, and then, throwing in our regular Star Wars news. So please stay tuned for that. And thank you, as always, Will, for being here. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
without you, I mean, I will say one thing about Will that's awesome is like, for me, this was like my, kind of like whole idea, and I wanted someone that I really could bounce ideas off of. And Will and I connect so well. And honestly, even after this, we'll probably talk about another 2 hours worth of shit just because we are the best of friends. So, and I just have great admiration because he's the one that ends up editing and putting all this shit together while I just get to run my mouth and come up with ideas, and he makes them possible. So,
Nah,
just letting you guys
you're
know
the
that.
producer. You're the producer over here, bro. So it's all good. Uh, but yeah, no, it's good. I think this has also been really good with this. Like I said, this whole fucking COVID-19 thing shit going on. It's just so nice to like talk about Star Wars and all this other stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's just good to talk to like somebody like that and then have people listen in who also enjoy all that. So yeah, it's a good experience. And obviously, still working out here, doing FedEx, and I just finished with my school and everything. So I'm trying to like get all this together, get all this shit together, trying to get my girl to move over here. But COVID-19, of course, all this other stuff, and it's just like it's good to have this. And sometimes I'll be in school and I have to edit some stuff for like class or something. And it's like you're kind of sitting there like, oh, okay, I'll edit this eventually, but it's not really something that you want to edit. Like this, I'm like excited to edit because I'm like, I get to listen to like through this whole conversation again and like edit this and like it's just fun. So
Like, man, Joey, can you be more positive and stop looking away from the fucking camera?
start fucking the little counter in the top. And as soon as I figure that out, I'll put a counter in the top. Every time we talk about the sequel shows, we're gonna have like 1,000 on this one, man. It's just ding, 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 ding.
It's like, and if you lucky people want to donate to the podcast for every time we shit talk the trilogy. But yeah, as a final just announcement for you guys, we did put up our design, the Jabbering Jawas design, on TeePublic. Um, and it is in our link tree on our Instagram profile. I'm supposed to get a sample of the shirt sometime this week. I'll post pictures of it. Once I do go for it, as far as buying stuff, I just want to make sure that it looks right before people buy it. That's why I haven't publicized it yet. I'm just giving a heads up. Shirts, stickers, T-shirts, and all kinds of other stuff you can get from Tia Public with that logo on it. All of that money is just going to go into the podcast to make it better. And probably get like better webcams and microphones just to make the experience overall better for you guys. So with that, let's close out the show, and happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Since we are recording this on Father's Day, if you're listening to it, there's no fucking way it's going to still be Father's Day, because as much as I love Will, there's no way he's going to be that quick, because this shit takes a while.
Yeah. I try.
Oh, I know. It's just 2 hours of show with 2 hours left in the day. I think you don't have it. Unless you got an 8-ball somewhere in there.
But yeah, no, like I said, like I always say, you can hit us up on Instagram, Jabbering Jawas. You can hit me up on Twitter. It's your boy Will. Boy spelled with an I. Will spelled with a 1. Sorry again.
And then you can hit me up at Sinister Wookie. Remember, Wookie, like I didn't know for the longest time, is spelled with 2 E's. So at Sinister Wookie, or on Twitter at Joey J Clark. It's a pretty straightforward name. You'll know because I only have like 27 followers, because sad life. All right.
It's all right. Dedicated 27.
Dedicated 27. Half of them are spam accounts. All right. Have a good week, everyone.
Peace out. May the force be with you.
Always.